You've got to be out of your damn mind. My mom snapped, her voice slicing through the air like a razor. Her words hit me hard as I sat there, jaw slack, staring at the scene unfolding in front of me. Emily, my little sister, lounged on the edge of the couch, her lips curling into a smug grin that twisted my gut into knots. Emily's the one who's always looking out for us, Mom went on, her tone venomous. Why the hell would you try to rip that away from her? I'm Abigail Carter, 29. A marketing consultant with a reputation as the steady, no-nonsense one in the family. People count on me to keep things together, no drama, no fuss. That's why, a few months back, I decided to do something quietly generous, slipping $10,000 in cash into my parents' mailbox. No note, no fanfare. Just a little something to ease their burdens. The only person I let in on it was Emily, my younger sister, the perpetually struggling artist who's always hogged the spotlight. I never dreamed she'd snatch the credit for herself, soaking up my parents' praise like it was her birthright. At first, I kept my mouth shut. I figured it wasn't worth the battle. Maybe she'd fess up eventually. But weeks stretched into months, and every family dinner turned into a nauseating love fest. Oh, Emily, you're so thoughtful, my mom would gush. We're so blessed to have you, Dad would add, beaming at her. Each word fueled the fire in my chest. It wasn't about the credit. It was the lie she let them believe while I sat there, swallowing my rage. Worse, I had no proof. I'd been so hell-bent on keeping it anonymous. No receipt, no bank trail, just cold cash in an envelope that I'd left myself defenseless. Then came Sunday dinner, the night I finally broke. Actually, I said, my voice cutting through their chatter like a gunshot. I'm the one who left the money. The room froze, every pair of eyes swiveling to me, wide with disbelief. Emily, though, just sat there, her face a perfect mask of stunned innocence, like I'd slapped her out of nowhere. Mom's voice shattered the silence, sharp and furious. Abigail, that's absurd. Why would you even say that? We know it was Emily. She's been so good to us. We're grateful for her. Dad nodded, his expression dripping with disappointment. There's no need to turn this into some petty rivalry, he said, like I was a child throwing a fit. Emily, ever the actress, clutched her chest, her voice trembling. I can't believe you'd do this. Abby, I know things have been rough between us, but this? Really? She shot a pleading glance at our parents, and they swooped in, cooing reassurances while I sat there, dumbfounded, watching her play the victim to perfection. It was maddening. She wasn't just lying. She was doubling down, and they were lapping it up. My fists clenched under the table as I fought to keep my voice steady. I'm not competing with anyone, I said, locking eyes with her. I just want the truth out there. I left that money. You're stealing something that's not yours, and it's wrong. Emily shook her head, her tone soft and patronizing. You've got no proof, Abby. Why would you leave cash like that? It doesn't even sound like you. Honestly, it feels like you're just jealous, trying to ruin this for me. The words sliced deep, and I saw Mom's frown deepen, like Emily had cracked the case. They were too blinded by their golden girl to even entertain the idea I might be right. Mom sighed, heavy and dramatic, like she was scolding a toddler. Abigail, this jealousy is getting out of hand. Emily's been so generous, and instead of celebrating her, you're tearing her down. It's disappointing. Dad piled on, his voice thick with condescension. We love you, Abby, even if you didn't give us money. You don't have to fight your sister for our affection. Their pitying looks, Emily's wounded but triumphant act, it was too much. I shoved my chair back, the screech echoing through the room, and glared at them all. You're ridiculous, I spat, my voice shaking with pent-up fury. You're so obsessed with fawning over Emily that you can't see she's lying to your faces. But mark my words, one day, you'll see the truth, and it'll be too late. I turned to Emily, pointing a trembling finger. And you'll regret this. Maybe not today, but when you're desperate for someone to trust, you'll realize you torched the only bridge that mattered. I didn't wait for their stunned replies. I grabbed my bag and stormed out, the doors slamming behind me like a thunderclap. After that, everything crumbled. My parents' calls and texts dwindled to a cold trickle, our conversations stiff and hollow when they happened at all. Emily vanished from my life completely, and I didn't care to chase her down. Family gatherings? I dodged them like the plague. Sitting across from her, pretending nothing happened, was a nightmare I refused to live. The only lifeline I had was my best friend, Lauren. One night, over a bottle of wine at her place, I let it all spill. I don't know what's worse, I said, my voice cracking, that Emily screwed me over, or that my parents didn't even blink before taking her side. Lauren just listened, her steady gaze anchoring me. It's like all the years I spent being the good daughter mean nothing. They'll always pick her. She squeezed my hand, her voice firm. You don't deserve this, Abby. You did something selfless, and they couldn't see it. That's their failure, not yours. Her words were a balm, but the wound still throbbed. Months later, I visited my grandparents, craving a shred of solace. But the moment I stepped inside, the air felt wrong, stiff, heavy. Their smiles were forced, their warmth replaced by awkward tension. As I settled in, I caught my Aunt Clara whispering to a cousin, "It's just sad, isn't it?" You'd think Abigail could have been happy for her sister instead of stirring up trouble. My stomach plummeted. I whipped around, but she averted her eyes, pretending I hadn't heard. Grandma tried to play peacemaker, pressing a plate of cookies into my hands. You know, sweetie, she said softly, Emily's been so good to your parents. It's inspiring how she stepped up. My chest tightened as the truth sank in. Emily had spun her web here too, painting me as the bitter troublemaker. I stayed just long enough to be polite, but driving home, the lump in my throat choked me. They'd all bought her story, hook, line, and sinker. Sitting in my car outside my apartment, I gripped the wheel, staring into the void. The worst part wasn't their belief in her lies, it was knowing I'd never convinced them otherwise. I'd been so careful to keep my gift anonymous that I'd left no evidence, no way to fight back. I was screaming into a black hole, and no one cared enough to hear me. I needed a miracle, something to flip the script and force the truth into the light. Walking away wasn't enough. I wanted justice. But what could that even look like? Just as I spiraled, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I snatched it up, expecting junk, but my heart stopped when I saw the name. Emily. Hey, Abby. I really need to talk to you. It's important. I stared at the screen, a storm of anger, suspicion, and curiosity raging inside me. She hadn't reached out in months. What the hell was this? My thumb hovered over the reply button, itching to fire back, but I stopped. She'd controlled the narrative long enough. She could wait. The next day, after a sleepless night, I texted back. What's so important, Emily? Make it quick. Her reply shot back instantly. Can I come over? I really need your help, Abby. I'm in a bad spot. The desperation in her words was alien. She never begged, especially not me. What kind of help? I typed, keeping her on a leash. No way was I letting her waltz in without explaining herself. I'm struggling financially, she responded. I can't keep up, and I don't know where else to turn. Please, Abby, just hear me out. I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound, at the irony. The golden child. The liar who'd trashed me, now crawling to me for a lifeline? Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face, but another part saw a crack in her armor, a chance to turn the tables. Fine, I wrote. Come over tomorrow. We'll talk, but no games. When she showed up, she was a ghost of herself. Hair a mess, face pale, drowning in an old hoodie. For a split second, I almost pitied her. But I shoved it down. I didn't know where else to go, she mumbled as I let her in. She perched on my couch, hands twisting in her lap. Things are bad, Abby. Rent's overdue, cards are maxed out. I can't even buy food. I'm screwed. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed, voice like steel. So you're asking me for money. She flinched, but didn't deny it. After everything you've pulled, you think I'm just gonna bail you out? Silence hung heavy between us, her breathing shaky. I've asked everyone else, she admitted, barely audible. Friends, random people, nobody's left. I didn't want to drag Mom and Dad into it. And the family, well, after everything. After lying to them for months? I cut in, sharp as a blade. She nodded, shrinking into herself. So I'm your last resort. The sister you stabbed in the back. Another nod, her voice a whisper. I know I don't deserve it, Abby. But I'm begging you. I studied her. Torn between kicking her out and seizing the moment. Then I made my call. No, Emily, I said, cold and final. Her head jerked up, eyes wide with panic. I'm not giving you a dime. Not after what you've done. Tears welled up, but I didn't flinch. Please, Abby, she pleaded. I'm desperate. I don't care, I snapped. You made your bed. You lied, you trashed me. And now you expect me to save you? No way. She slumped, defeated, grabbing her bag with shaking hands. I get it, she whispered, voice breaking. I messed up. I don't deserve your help. I'm sorry, Abby. For everything. She stumbled to the door, tears spilling, and slipped out before I could respond. I stood there, staring at the empty space, a strange calm settling over me. I'd held my ground, no guilt, just clarity. A few days later, my phone rang while I was pouring coffee. It was Dad, rare for him to call. Abigail, he said, voice shaky. We'd like you to come to dinner Friday. Emily wants to see us all. She says it's important. It'd mean a lot if you were there. My gut twisted. This wasn't some casual meal. Did she say why? I asked, wary. No, just that it's in person, he replied, pleading softly. Please, Abby. I hesitated, then agreed. Fine, I'll be there. But I braced myself, whatever Emily had up her sleeve. I wasn't walking in blind. Friday night, I pulled into their driveway, nerves buzzing. The house smelled of Mom's pot roast, but it only churned my stomach more. Inside, my parents, grandparents, and Emily sat around the table, the air thick with tension. Emily fidgeted, avoiding my gaze. Dad stood as I walked in. Abigail, glad you're here, he said, gesturing to a chair. I sat, eyes on Emily, waiting. Then she cracked. Before anyone could speak, she burst into sobs, loud and raw, burying her face in her hands. Mom gasped, rushing to her. What's wrong, honey? Dad leaned in, alarmed. Emily, what's going on? I didn't move. I didn't need to. I knew what was coming. I can't keep lying. She wailed, voice ragged. The $10,000. It wasn't me. It was Abigail. She left it in the mailbox. The room went dead silent, her confession hanging like a guillotine. I took the credit because I was jealous. I wanted to be the one you praised, the one you loved more. I've never felt like I had to compete. Mom and Dad always had my back, but I wanted more. When Abigail did something so big, I couldn't stand it. So I lied. She looked at our parents, tears streaming. I didn't think how it'd hurt her, how it'd tear us apart. I just wanted to feel special. And when she called me out, I lied again. I panicked. I couldn't lose your pride. Then she turned to me, voice shattering. I'm so sorry, Abby. You didn't deserve this. I was selfish, and I went too far. The silence was deafening. Mom's face drained of color. Dad's eyes darted between us, stunned. I sat there, a storm raging inside. Anger, vindication, sorrow. Her words should have felt like victory, but they just hollowed me out. Mom spoke first, voice trembling. Abigail, we were so wrong. We assumed you were jealous, never thought you might be right. We've been so unfair. Dad nodded, guilt etched deep. We should have listened, Abby. We doubted you, and you didn't deserve that. I'm so sorry. Their apologies hit like bricks, but I felt numb. They were sorry now, but where were they when I needed them? My grandparents sat in heavy silence, Grandma's lips tight. Grandpa shaking his head, their disappointment palpable. Days later, the scene haunted me, Emily's breakdown, my parents' regret, my grandparents' shock. I kept replaying it, wrestling with the mess of it all. Emily had screwed up, but she'd finally owned it. Maybe she deserved a shot, not a handout, but a hand up. So I called her. Emily, I said, firm but steady. I'll help you. Not with money, but with a plan. We'll sort your finances, get you on track, but only if you're serious. She paused, then whispered, okay. Thank you, Abby. It wasn't full forgiveness, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt lighter, not free of the pain, but unburdened by it. I'd reclaimed my voice, my peace. And that was enough.